Night Living Dead. George A. Romero's 1968 classic Night of the Living Dead has one of the most ambiguous outbreak origins in horror. Released October 1st, 1968, and directed by Romero with co-writer John A. Russo, it created the modern flesh-eating zombie archetype. The movie never definitively states the cause, but characters watch a TV news report speculating about a returning space probe from Venus that was destroyed in Earth's atmosphere after being contaminated by mysterious radiation in space. Scientists debate whether cosmic radiation from the exploded probe could be reanimating the dead, but it remains unresolved. Romero later said he preferred leaving the cause ambiguous, though this radiation from space became the closest thing to a pseudo-canon explanation. Subsequent Dead films, including Dawn of the Dead in 1978 and Day of the Dead in 1985, deliberately avoid explaining the origin further. This matters because it set the tone for decades of zombie fiction, an unknown, possibly cosmic trigger that ordinary people only glimpse through confused media reports. Dawn Dead. Dawn of the Dead continues Romero's universe with the Outbreak origin deliberately murky, echoing the first film's half-explained cosmic disaster. Released in 1978 as a direct sequel, the film is set as society fully collapses. The film broadcasts debating causes, but unlike its predecessor, no specific new origin theory is given, just that the dead are rising everywhere. Some commentators treat it almost biblically, referencing, "When there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth," particularly through Peter's iconic line. Because Romero chose not to confirm the Venus probe theory or introduce a new one, the outbreak's true cause is effectively unknowable. This underlines that sometimes the scariest outbreak origin is no origin at all. 28 Days. 28 Days Later redefined the genre with Fast Infected, but grounds the outbreak in a lab-made rage virus accidentally unleashed by animal rights activists. Danny Boyle's 2002 film, written by Alex Garland, opens at a Cambridge research facility where chimpanzees are experimented on to study and inhibit violent behavior. Scientists warn activists that the chimps are infected with rage, and freeing them will spread an extremely contagious blood-borne virus. Despite explicit warnings, activists unchain a chimp, which attacks and bites a female activist, spreading the virus. The graphic novel 28 Days Later, The Aftermath, expands the backstory. Scientists Clive and Warren splice an anger-inhibiting compound into an Ebola virus, and the compound mutates to create the rage virus. The virus transmits via infected blood or saliva through bites or splashes into eyes or mouth, with symptoms manifesting in seconds: uncontrollable aggression, loss of reasoning, and constant screaming. Victims are still biologically alive, can die from starvation or injuries, and eventually die off from lack of food, as shown in 28 Weeks Later. This origin is significant because it's one of the clearest, most scientifically framed outbreak setups in zombie cinema. Train Busan. The 2016 South Korean film, Train to Busan, begins with a chemical leak at a biotech facility spiraling into a nationwide catastrophe. Directed by Yun Sang-ho, the film opens near a rural checkpoint where a truck driver hits a deer that later reanimates, hinting at environmental contamination. News reports reference a small leak at a biotech company, implying experimental chemicals or biological agents escaped containment. The infection spreads through bites and scratches with extremely rapid onset. Victims turn within seconds, retaining motor skills but losing higher reasoning. Although the movie never names a specific virus, it frames the outbreak as a biotech accident-originated pathogen. The prequel, Seoul Station, reinforces that societal neglect and shady experimentation incubated the outbreak. The origin ties industrial negligence and corporate secrecy to apocalyptic infection, reflecting contemporary anxieties about unregulated biotech. Resident Evil. The Resident Evil film series centers on the Umbrella Corporation's T-virus, a lab-engineered pathogen triggering global zombie outbreaks. The first film, released in 2002 and directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, adapts the game universe. The T-virus is created by Umbrella, derived from the natural progenitor virus found in an African flower, initially engineered to enhance human strength and extend lifespan, but proving highly unstable. A thief steals T-virus samples from Umbrella's underground hive facility beneath Raccoon City and deliberately smashes vials, releasing the virus. The airborne release contaminates workers, and the Red Queen AI seals the complex, but reanimation still occurs. The virus spreads via bites, contaminated blood, water, and aerosol exposure. Later films show Umbrella repeatedly weaponizing variants. This origin is central to modern zombie fiction because it makes the outbreak an explicitly intentional product of capitalism and militarization. Umbrella literally designs the end of the world for profit. World War. World War Z, the 2013 film adaptation of Max Brooks's novel, traces the zombie outbreak's origin to a mysterious Patient Zero in East Asia, but the exact cause remains out of reach. The film follows UN investigator Jerry Lane, played by Brad Pitt, traveling globally to trace the source of a fast-spreading pandemic. Early investigation hears rumors about an initial outbreak in South Korea and a zombie incident at Camp Humphreys, a U.S. military base. A phone call points to Patient Zero in rural China, though the location was changed in edits, but Lane never gets conclusive proof. At a Cardiff facility, scientists piece together that the pathogen is a highly contagious, fast-acting virus spread via bites and blood contact with seconds incubation time. The film never identifies whether the virus was natural, lab-made, or something else, only that it rapidly mutated into a catastrophic plague. This origin emphasizes information failure. Even a high-level UN investigator can't fully reconstruct where or how it started. Legend. I Am Legend shifts zombie lore toward virology, with a genetically engineered cancer cure mutating into the Crippen virus and nearly wiping out humanity. Released in 2007 and starring Will Smith as virologist Robert Neville, it's loosely based on Richard Matheson's 1954 novel. Dr. Alice Crippen, played by Emma Thompson, explains she reprogrammed the measles virus to attack cancer cells, with 10,009 clinical trials reporting a 100% cure rate. The modified virus, dubbed the Crippen virus, mutates disastrously after widespread use, becoming a lethal pandemic. The virus becomes airborne and bloodborne, killing about 90% of the world's population, with the majority of survivors transforming into dark seekers, light-sensitive, hyper-aggressive, vampire-like mutants. Robert Neville is immune and remains alone in devastated New York City, performing experiments on infected humans to find a cure. This origin is a cautionary tale about gene-edited viruses and unintended consequences of miracle cures. REC. Quarantine. The Spanish film Rec and its American remake Quarantine both trap characters in an infected apartment building but diverge sharply on outbreak origin, from demonic possession to engineered infection. Rec, released in 2007 and directed by Jaume Balaguerro and Paco Plaza, follows a TV crew trapped in a quarantined Barcelona building as residents become violently infected. Late in the film, survivors reach a penthouse where a reclusive Vatican agent had been experimenting on a possessed girl named Tristana Medeiros. Church documents suggest he tried to isolate and study demonic possession as a virus. The possession manifested physically as contagious disease, and his failed exorcism created a virus of possession escaping into the building. The US remake, Quarantine, released in 2008, keeps the basic structure but changes the origin. The attic reveals evidence of a cultist who engineered a mutated rabies strain. The infected dog and human cases are linked to this lab-made pathogen, shifting the cause from religious horror to bioterrorism. This pair shows how the same outbreak scenario can be reinterpreted, European horror leaning into demonic infection, while the American version reframes it as engineered pathogen. 28 weeks. 28 weeks later shows that even after the rage virus seems contained, one reckless decision and an asymptomatic carrier reignite the outbreak from inside the safe zone. Released in 2007, the film follows survivors attempting to rebuild months after forces declare Britain largely cleared of infection. Don, a survivor, discovers his wife survived and carries a rare genetic trait. She's infected, but asymptomatic, with different colored eyes. Military doctors bring her into the secure District 1 in London for study. Dawn visits against orders, kisses her, and is infected by her saliva. Dawn becomes a new rage virus vector inside the heavily guarded zone, attacking staff and igniting a second wave that overwhelms containment. This entry exemplifies how containment can fail not through new science, but through human error and emotional weakness. By the way, if you're enjoying this, I create content like this all the time. Subscribing would really help out. Return Living. The Return of the Living Dead presents one of the clearest and wildest zombie origins. A military-made chemical called trioxin leaks from a mislabeled corpse drum and starts an undead chain reaction. Released in 1985 and directed by Dan O'Bannon, the film opens at Unida Medical Supply Warehouse, where employees show off sealed military drums allegedly containing corpses from a botched experiment. The drums are stamped with 2,4,5 trioxin, a fictional chemical developed by the US military to immobilize or destroy enemy combatants by affecting corpses. A clumsy employee accidentally ruptures a drum, releasing green trioxin gas into the warehouse. The gas reanimates a stored cadaver and later seeps into the nearby cemetery. Paramedics and police are attacked, and their bodies become new zombies. Efforts to destroy bodies by cremating them backfire. Burning zombies sends trioxin-laced smoke into the atmosphere. Rain carries contaminated particulates back down onto the graveyard as acid rain, reanimating many more corpses. The military, monitoring trioxin incidents, ultimately uses extreme measures on the town, but the blast kicks more contaminated particles into the sky, implying the outbreak will spread globally. This origin shows the full feedback loop from secret weapon to leak to failed cleanup to atmospheric contamination. Dead Snow. The Norwegian film Dead Snow doesn't use a virus at all. The outbreak comes from a cursed Nazi battalion reanimated like undead guardians protecting stolen treasure. Released in 2009 and directed by Tommy Wirkola, the film follows medical students on a ski trip in Norway who disturb a cache of gold. Local legend explains that a brutal unit led by Standartenführer Herzog terrorized the area during World War II, stealing valuables from villagers. Villagers rose up, forcing the soldiers into the mountains, where Herzog and his men supposedly froze to death, their bodies lost with the loot. The film's zombies awaken when the protagonists find and take the hidden treasure, suggesting a curse-like link as the undead return to reclaim their gold. There is no scientific pathogen. The origin is explicitly supernatural, drawing on Norse myths of undead warriors guarding riches. This shows a completely different template, where the outbreak is moral and mythic punishment rather than science. Pontypool. Pontypool presents one of the most surreal zombie origins ever, a memetic virus embedded in the English language that turns listeners violent. The 2008 Canadian film, directed by Bruce MacDonald, is set almost entirely inside a small-town Ontario radio station. As reports come in, people outside exhibit bizarre, zombie-like behavior, repeating words, losing coherent speech, then turning violent. A doctor theorizes the virus spreads through certain English words and phrases, specifically through understanding rather than just sound. The infection process begins with word fixation, then semantic breakdown as the word stops making sense, then aggressive behavior. The film never offers a conventional origin. The cause seems to be a linguistic or memetic phenomenon emerging spontaneously or through unknown means. This origin divorces zombies from biology entirely, turning them into a metaphor for contagious ideas and mass communication gone wrong. Shaun Dead. Shaun of the Dead deliberately parodies zombie tropes, including the unexplained outbreak, with background hints but no confirmed origin. Edgar Wright's 2004 horror comedy follows Shaun and friends surviving a zombie outbreak in London. The film never spells out the cause, TV channels are constantly interrupted, and every time a reporter starts describing the origin, Shaun changes the channel. Background news snippets mention a suspected space probe re-entry, contaminated cargo, and possible disease, echoing earlier zombie origins without confirming any. Wright has said the cause is intentionally vague, as the movie cares more about character arcs than specifics. This underscores how later films play with established outbreak cliches, turning origin tropes into background jokes. Zombieland. Zombieland gives its outbreak a darkly comic spin. A disease affecting cattle mutates into one affecting people. Released in 2009 and directed by Ruben Fleischer, the film follows survivors navigating a post-apocalyptic United States. Columbus narrates that zombies originated from a mutated strain of the disease affecting cattle and causing neurological damage. He quips it became one affecting humans after contaminated meat infected people, then devolved into an effective, fast-acting zombie infection. The film treats this as an accepted in-universe fact, as characters never challenge the explanation. No specific lab or corporate culprit is named. This origin uses real-world fears about contaminated meat and neurological diseases as foundation, then exaggerates them into comedy horror. Warm Bodies. Warm Bodies never fully explains its zombie outbreak, but hints at a catastrophic plague that left survivors walled off from hordes of undead and skeletal bonies. Released in 2013 and directed by Jonathan Levine, the film is based on Isaac Marion's novel. R, the zombie narrator, admits he doesn't remember how the outbreak started. Human survivors live behind a giant wall with references to the plague and sudden societal collapse, but details of the original trigger are scarce. There's no on-screen explanation of virus, accident, or curse. The focus is instead on the emotional state of zombies and how love begins reversing their condition. This intentionally sidelines origin details to explore what comes after, focusing on identity, guilt, and redemption in an already broken world. Planet Terror. Robert Rodriguez's Planet Terror turns its zombie outbreak into grindhouse-style military error as experimental bioweapon gas releases during a shady arms deal. Released in 2007 as part of Grindhouse, the film depicts a Texas town overrun by grotesquely infected, pustule-covered zombies. The origin is a military bioweapon known as DC-2, or Project Terror, under control of rogue U.S. Army officer Lieutenant Muldoon. During an illicit transaction with scientist Abby, DC-2 gas accidentally releases when negotiations go bad. The aerosolized agent infects local civilians and soldiers, causing hideous physical mutations and zombie-like aggression. Those exposed can temporarily stave off symptoms by continuing to inhale DC-2, leading Muldoon and his men to become dependent on the gas. The infection spreads via airborne contact and bodily fluid exposure. This origin leans into exploitation film paranoia about secret U.S. bioweapons leaking onto home soil. The Crazies. In the 2010 remake of The Crazies, a crashed military plane contaminates a small town's water supply with a bioweapon codenamed Trixie, turning residents into violent pseudo-zombies. Directed by Breck Eisner, the film remakes George A. Romero's 1973 original, relocating to Ogden Marsh, Iowa. A military plane carrying Trixie crashes into a local river feeding the town's water supply. Trixie is a weaponized virus designed to destabilize populations. Exposure gradually strips victims of inhibition and empathy, making them violent and deranged, while still capable of using tools. Townspeople exhibit bizarre behavior before U.S. military forces arrive imposing quarantine. It's revealed that officials knew about the crash but delayed response, allowing contamination to spread through drinking water. Those who drink are infected, and boiling doesn't help, making local infrastructure itself the origin vector. This origin blends zombie tropes with paranoia about military testing on domestic soil and fragile rural infrastructure. Night Comet. Night of the Comet swaps viruses for space debris, as a passing comet's radiation ends most of humanity, and dusts survivors with particles, turning them into zombie-like ghouls. Released in 1984, the film follows two teenage sisters who survive a cosmic event wiping out most life on Earth. A comet passes close to Earth, and those standing outside watching are disintegrated into red dust, while others, partially shielded, are exposed to strange radiation. People with partial exposure don't pass immediately, but gradually deteriorate mentally and physically, becoming feral, zombie-like mutants. The cause is explicitly extraterrestrial, comet-related radiation and particulate matter, not lab-made virus or curse. This entry brings the video full circle back to space-caused outbreaks, echoing Night of the Living Dead, but in a more colorful 1980s style. If you found this valuable, subscribe so you never miss new content. Thanks for watching.